صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. ثانية على حب الحسن والحسين. ثالثة على حب فاطمة الزهراء على أصواتكم. Further this way. Can you just loosen this? No, it is just loosen this for me. Ahsant. Let me just push this forward. Right there is good. Jazakallah. Ahsant. Good. Jazakallah. Thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى آل بيتك المعصومين المظلومين. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله الحسين. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم وأمن من لجأ إليكم سادتي. فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. Salutations upon you, O Messenger of Allah. Salutations upon you and upon your immaculate oppressed progeny. Salutations upon you, our Master Abu Abdullah. We wish we were with you. That would have been the greatest of victories for us. Ya Gharib Karbala, Ya Madloom Karbala, Ya Shaheed Karbala. All together. غريب كربلاء مظلوم كربلاء. Let the Imam hear you. شهيد كربلاء غريب كربلاء مظلوم كربلاء شهيد كربلاء. Estranged on the land of Karbala, oppressed on the land of Karbala, martyred on the land of Karbala. Assalamu ala al-Hussein wa ala Ali ibn al-Hussein wa ala awlad al-Hussein وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم وقوله الحق. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in the Holy Quran, and what he says is the truth. In the chapter of Al-Kahf, chapter 18, verse 13, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, نحن نقص عليك نبأهم بالحق إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم إيمانا وزدناهم هدى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this beautiful verse, in speaking about the youth of the cave, Allah says, and we will tell you their story in truth. For they surely were youth that believed in their Lord. And as a result, we increased them in guidance. صدق الله العلي العظيم. آمنا بالله. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome you again to another night in these sorrowful nights of remembrance, of commemorating those who were martyred on the land of Karbala, of the companions and of Ahlul Bayt. And there's a very important topic that we can't leave these nights without addressing, and that topic is youth. Now, we entitled this lecture Misunderstood Youth. And you'll understand why. And you'll probably already know if you're a youth. But in order to deal with such a topic, and it is an important topic, a topic that surely we've all gone through at one point of our lives, whether we remember it or not, and if not, then we're going through it right now, perhaps. What I want to do in tackling this topic is, first of all, address the issue of the Muslim identity crisis. Secondly, I'd like to talk about how Islam envisions youth. And then I'd like to give some solutions to common challenges that our youth face today in the Western world. And the same can apply to those living back in the Middle East, to be honest with you too. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So the Muslim identity crisis is this state that we go through when we're youth, living in the West. When we have parents that were not born in the country where we are, we were either born in the West or we grew up in the West. We came at a very young age. And so 35 hours out of the week, every day, 5 days out of the week, we went to school here, right? And our personalities, as they developed and were molded, at least over 80% of that personality, if not 90%, was highly influenced by those 35 hours of school time. Now, if you compare that to working a regular job is 40 hours a week, right? 40 hours a week means 160 hours a month. So near 160 hours a month, we were literally spending, just like a full-time job, just going to school. And school in the West separates between church and state, meaning that it's a secular system. Religion is not allowed to be taught, right? Unless you go to a private school, of course. If you go to a private school, that's a different story. So for example, here in the ICA, there's the Maya school. They can teach children prayer and fasting and Hajj and Zakat and Khums and all of these great Islamic laws, as well as they teach them aqa'id, theology, and so forth, and ethics. But most youth that are in the West cannot afford to go to a private school, right? On average in the US, after going around the US, we found that the average rate per year tuition for a school ranges between $4,000 to $8,000 a year. And now if you have more than one child, this becomes very hard for you to cover unless, for example, you have a high-paying job, right? So what ends up happening to the youth is when they come home, there's this Arabic, Indo-Pak, African, Middle Eastern home, right? With the saran-wrapped couches, right? And the tea time, right? We drink chai, right? And the Turkish coffee, and the news always blasting, your dad, your uncles, right? Everybody's watching the news, right? To know what's going on in the Middle East. And literally, when you go into the house, what happens is you hit a switch. You literally switch personalities from being the American you or Western you to being the Arabic or Middle Eastern you, right? And this is a dilemma that all of our youth go through. Because you see, when they're in school, they're expected not only to fit in academically, because you see, the parents, they want to make sure that their kids are successful academically. We didn't come this far from the Middle East, they tell you, so that you become a janitor, right? Badna yak doctor, right? We want you to be a doctor, right? We want you to be muhandis. You have to be an engineer or a lawyer. You have to have some sort of high-paying job, or you're successful in business. Your parents didn't, and your grandparents didn't come and cross the Atlantic, right? So that then you would be a lowly blue-collar worker. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's halal work, right? But these are the expectations. So what ends up happening is we become very studious, right? Or at least we try. And our end goal is never really, I'm saying in most homes, pleasing Allah per se. It's pleasing our parents first and foremost. And of course, pleasing our parents means pleasing Allah. But we took it to a higher level in the past lectures, right? Because if you please Allah first and foremost, then by default you'll please your parents. Right? By default. So your parents will say, you know, my son the doctor, right? My daughter the doctor. She still hasn't graduated high school. The pressure is there. The pressure is real, right? So what ends up happening is you either become very, very studious, right? Or you rebel. And when you rebel, you don't necessarily rebel outwardly and they know about it, right? Your rebellion is to get a C instead of an A, or a B instead of an A, right? And when you have siblings, there's extra pressure, right? What's the extra pressure? Why aren't you more like your sister? Why aren't you more like your brother? We'll talk about that in a minute. How that can be damaging. But see, when we go through school day after day, hour after hour, you know, 160 hours almost a month, multiply that by 12, right? How many hours are we spending a year? You're looking at a formidable amount of hours where your personality is not an Islamic or an ethnic personality. Your personality is a Western personality. And when you come back home, or you come to the community center or the Islamic center, there are expectations of you because you're the son or the daughter of Hajj or Hajjah, whomever, or doctor, whomever, right? So the expectations are very high of you. So you put on the face, right? You put on the mask. You play the role. You see, you weren't always like this. You were that child that grew up listening to your mom and your dad all the time, and up until the age where you needed to fit in, everything was okay. But once you hit that mangy age of puberty, everything hits the roof, right? Everything goes loose. Prophet Muhammad says, "Ash-shababu darbun min al-junun." Prophet Muhammad, describing youth, he says the state of youth, when you're a youth, it's almost a state of insanity. Why? Because the hormones are going crazy, right? And you're trying to fit in, and you're trying to think, but you can't think clearly because the hormones that you have are wreaking havoc in your system, right? And you start questioning all sorts of things. You see yourself as being mature enough, right, to respond to your parents. You feel as though you're entitled to your own opinion, you know. Before, your opinion was the same or congruent to your parents. Now you have your own opinion, right? And your parents get angry at you, and now these parents that loved you and you loved them, now you're at odds with them. All why? Because of this Muslim identity crisis. Because you see, we're not taught how to handle this. Our parents didn't have a manual, and neither did they grow up in the West like we did. If they grew up in the West, then they have a one-up, right? They can relate. They're able to talk us through certain challenges that we face. But most of us, we didn't have that. So how do we deal with it? Now, if our parents were the type that ended up assimilating, then they might teach us to assimilate too. Out of fear for our safety, right? Because there's this natural state that I want my child to be successful, right? And I don't want them to go through what I went through, so they might as well choose an identity. And I'll make it easy for them. Choose the Western identity, right? I had so much pain not choosing that identity. I wish that I had just stayed and picked one road, and that would have been easy. Because you see, it's very hard to walk with one foot on one road and one foot on the other road, right? It's exactly like a train, right, would have to split in half if it was at a divide of the tracks and it wasn't to choose a track to go on. It would cause a disaster, right? It would be derailed. So when your parents do that, if your parents do that, it's not because they don't love you. It's because they love you and they don't want, and this is the best solution they know. Again, no one gave them a manual, right? And if they're from back home, they don't understand why I want to take a year off after high school. Like, shoo, take a year off. What, are you kidding me? You have to go age 19. You have to finish 19, right? You have to be married by 21. Oh, because by that time, you will have had enough money to be able to open up a house. Oh, you don't have enough money by age 21, right? Then get off your behind and find a job, right? Make money, make a lot of money, so that then you can afford to get married. Because right now you can't afford to get married. But this is the same mom and dad that don't go to the Jama, right? This is the same mom and dad that go to the Jama all the time and listen to the sheikhs and the sayyids get on the minbar and say, the Prophet says, it is of my sunnah to marry early. Don't let your kids spend too much time until they get married. Why? Because the Prophet says there will be fitna on the earth if this happens. Let them marry their kufr, those who are worthy of them, equal to them, not in financial status. Otherwise, Prophet Muhammad wouldn't have married Sayyidah Khadija, right? Not in financial status, in iman. Their kufr means those who are worthy of them in iman, right? So now, we recognize there is an identity crisis. We recognize that we've all gone through something like this. And I might have given you an example of a friend who, you know, in college with me, because he knew I was religious, he was all subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar. But then when he was with his, you know, white friends, quote unquote, all of a sudden he would switch. Right? The profanity, the obscenities, right? The bad akhlaq, all to fit in. All to fit in. You know, I remember when I was in high school, when I first came to North America, funny story. I was the only Muslim in my school, or so I thought. And then a brother, doesn't matter what his ethnicity is, he was a Muslim. So he finds out that I'm Muslim. So he comes to me, he says, he introduces himself, tells me his name, and he gives me his Muslim name, really beautiful Muslim name too. And he says to me, you know, I'm so glad that you're here. At least there's someone like me here. You know, maybe we can get together later. I said, Jazakallah, that's very good. I'd be happy to. And so what ends up happening is the next day, I see him, well, probably from here to the clock over there, down the hall. You know, all our, you know, in school that is. And I shout out his name. I won't mention his name so it doesn't become ghibah. I shout out his name. Assalamu alaikum, brother, ... And then what does he do? He was fast too. He was on the track team. He ran so fast. I've never seen anybody run that fast. He ran so fast towards me, I thought he was going to charge me and take me out. And what did he do? He did this the whole time he was running down. Shh. That was the longest shh I'd ever heard. And his hand came like this on my mouth. He covered my mouth. He said, what is wrong with you? He said, never, never say my Muslim name in school. I couldn't understand that. I said, well, why? Nobody knows I'm Muslim. This was before 9/11. People didn't even have a problem with Muslims then. Right? I said to him, why? He said, because nobody knows I'm Muslim. I don't want them to know I'm Muslim. They'll treat me differently. I just want to fit in. See, there's this need to fit in. We see this. We notice this. Even after 9/11, we probably noticed this more. Because a lot of people weren't educating others about Islam. Right? So when 9/11 happened, after 9/11, we started to realize, it doesn't matter if you call yourself Mike or Mo or Joe. You know, if people don't know, you could be a Mike and a Mo and a Joe or a John and still be Muslim. Right? So you might as well educate people about your religion. Because if you do, they realize the reason why you're such a good person is because of your religion. Because of the values that your religion teaches you. But we didn't do that, so what ends up happening is, unfortunately, ignorant people end up humiliating some of our women, some of our families, and so forth. But see, that's normal. Shaykhna, how is that normal? Imam Ali says, الناس أعداء ما جهلوا. People are enemies to that which they do not know. So Allah says in the Holy Quran, He says, وَهَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Do those who know equate with those that don't know? No. It's a rhetorical question. So teach people about your religion. Teach them about who you are. And first and foremost, be a great reflection of that religion. I remember when I worked as a consultant, not too far from here in the city of Detroit, years back. In the department, everybody knew that when it was time for prayer, right, I'd have my own little, I'd have my desk, my office, I'd close the door and I'd pray. And they knew exactly what time, and I told them what time. And those who wanted to give me a nickname when I was in high school, I played varsity soccer and varsity basketball. So when I was playing varsity soccer, the captain of the team, my first day, he comes to me. He says, I like how you kick the ball. I'm going to call you Julio. I said, what does that have to do with anything? I said, why do you want to call me Julio? Julio. That's 3 syllables. My name is Aus. It's 1 syllable. It's just easier. I said, no, it might be easy for you, but it's not who I am. And they learned who I was through the akhlaq, right? Through my ethics, through how I dealt with them, through how respectful I was. The teachers all loved me. Why? Because I was respectful. I remember the first day I went into school in North America, I had, and I tell you the story just so that you realize I understand. There's pandemonium in the class. Teacher hadn't arrived yet. It was crazy. The F word was flying all over the room. Kids had their feet on the tables. People were eating sandwiches. It was really bizarre. And I sat down waiting, right? And I was like all well dressed and stuff, like back home. And teacher walks in. I get up, right, to greet her out of respect. Nobody gets up. I look around. Nobody gets up. No one's even moving. No one even stops doing what they're doing. They keep talking and talking and talking and yapping and swearing. This poor English teacher starts the class. She's telling everyone to quieten down and sit down. Nobody does that. And the girl next to me, she had just turned 16. She said to me, it's going to be my sweet 16 party this weekend. I'm inviting you. I said, okay. Oh, there's going to be booze and everything. I'm moving out of my parents' house. I just moved into a new apartment. I was like, what? It was a state of shock for me, right? You're 16, you're drinking, you're moving out of your parents' house. We don't move out of our parents' house until we get married, right? Here, you're a loser if you do that in the West. For us, you're a loser if you leave your parents' home until you get married. It's the exact opposite, right? I remember when I played on the basketball team, one of my friends, his girlfriend, my teammate, I should say, not my friend, my teammate. He was a good guy, very respectful. Well, I was in physics class. His girlfriend comes up to me, says, Aus, you know, you want a girlfriend? I said, excuse me? I said, yeah, you want a girlfriend? Come on, you're young, you're handsome. I had hair those days. I was athletic, right? Come on, you know. I said, what are you talking about? I can't have a girlfriend. Why? Because I'm Muslim. So? I said, what do you mean so? My religion prevents me from, the only woman I will know is the woman that I marry. Oh, come on, that's okay. It's not a big deal. Tell me, what do you want? Chinese, African, Hispanic? Say, do you not hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? Right? And I can imagine every day being bombarded by this over and over and over and over. And I saw someone who was bombarded over and over and over. A person who I knew, who would later on join me in that high school. And he wasn't that strong. He made the wrong choices, which he would later regret. Right? Why? Because he assimilated. So now we need to deal with the other issue. The next issue is dealing with, you know, the societal challenges that we go through, right? How do we deal with those? As youth, and I say this liberally because I have white hair, but Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq says that those who have Iman always remain youthful. So inshallah we're all youth. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Imam Ali alayhi afdal as-salatu was-salam, to understand the Islamic view of youth, Imam Ali alayhi afdal as-salatu was-salam, you know what he says? He says, Inna Allah يحب الشاب الذي يفني شبابه في طاعة الله. Surely Allah loves the youth who dedicates his entire youth to the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now remember how we said that the most important thing for us is to perfect our intellect. And the reason why we perfect our intellect is so that Allah loves us, right? For surely if Allah loves us, then He'll take care of us in this world and in the hereafter. Right? So if I want Allah to love me, remember in that very first narration in Al-Kafi that I mentioned to you by Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he said when Allah first created the intellect, He gave it the ability to speak and rationalize. He admired it. And then He said, by my majesty and my grandeur, surely I have not created a creation more beloved to me than you, and neither have I completed you except in those whom I love. So we're looking for the love of Allah, right? So as a youth, how can Allah love me? If I dedicate myself to the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I am obedient to Allah. In another narration, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi afdal as-salatu was-salam, he says, إِنَّمَا قَلْبُ الْحَدَثِ كَالْأَرْضِ الْخَالِيَةِ. He says, surely the heart of a youth is like a fertile, unplanted, untouched soil. Anything you plant in it will be fruitful. So the way we should deal with our kids, Islamically speaking, is we need to realize that from a young age, we have to make sure they come to these majalis. We have to make sure that if they're not going to an Islamic school, then we need to make sure that we create not just, yes, put them in a Saturday school or a Sunday school. That's important. But that 10 to 4, it's 10 to 4 usually, right? How many hours is that? 6 hours? Is it? Or 10 to 2. It's not even to 4. It's 10 to 2. It's 4 hours. Saturday and Sunday schools are usually 10 to 2. They're 4 hours. 4 hours a week versus 35 hours a week. Shaykhna, it's better than nothing. Wallahi, if I gave a penny for every time I heard that, I'd be a millionaire. And I'd be able to build a school maybe, or schools for free for our kids. So that all kids would be able to go. But that's neither here nor there. Right? What's the practical solution? The parents will say. And for you who are youth now, when you have kids in the future, inshallah, make sure your kids are in an after-school program. If there isn't one, demand one from your center. If your center isn't providing one, then you find the best, most knowledgeable people in your community or outside. And today it's easy. If they're not available in your community to teach, then outside there are people who can teach via Skype, right? Via FaceTime, correct? Give that child a chance. Give that youth a chance. Now, if you want to work on yourself and you're not a parent yet, you can do the same thing. Search out the shuyukh, the sayyids. If they say my English is not too good, then tell them, can you recommend someone? Get a translator. Today it's not that hard. There are so many of our youth that are studying in Qom. Some are studying in Najaf. Some are studying in Lebanon. Via Skype, we can very easily have after-school classes for our kids. And the goal is to be able to reach as close as possible to that 35 hours a week, so that we can combat everything else. Let me add something. You know, my kids were in the school system in Michigan. And, you know, the schools here in Dearborn are, you know, when it's month of Ramadan or Eid, for example, they celebrate Eid. They also teach them Arabic because there are grant dollars from the government to teach Arabic. But you know, the amount of information that they get in their classes, culturally speaking, right, is very, very secular. Even the books in their reading pamphlets that they get to order books, I mean, they'll be great readers. They make great readers out of our kids. If you give them Harry Potter, they'll finish the entire series in like 4 days, right? Great readers. But you give them a tiny little pamphlet about Islam, they get sleepy and tired and ma li khili', right? I don't want to, I don't have the time, right? And one of the reasons why I spoke to one of the Maraja in Najaf, I said, what do you advise the parents? He said, tell them that kids learn from your actions more than your words. Allah says in the Holy Quran, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, speaking to those who believe, He says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kabura maqtan lima taquluna ma la taf'alun kabura maqtan 'inda Allahi an taqulu ma la taf'alun. Why do you say that which you do not do? Surely it is hated by Allah for you to say that which you don't do. Which means that if I want my child to read, then from a young age, I need to show them that I'm reading and what I'm reading. And I need to read to them. Modern psychology and experts in education have proven scientifically that children whose parents read to them are more likely to love reading. So imagine if you read to them about Ahl al-Bayt. They're more likely to love Ahl al-Bayt, right? If you read to them about the prophets, they're more likely to love and connect with the prophets. Imam Ali says, Al-ilmu fi as-sighar kan-naqshi fi al-hajar. Teaching kids at a young age is exactly like carving in stone. Modern neuropsychologists say that the first 4 years of a child's life are the most formidable years of learning, when their interneurons, the interneuronal connections, are being made, that everything you teach them literally will be carved in their nervous system from that time onward. So now we have a plan of what to do, right? But then now we want to understand what are solutions to some of the common problems that we're facing today. For example, we're in school and there's homecoming, right? Or there's prom. What do we do? Do we let our kids go? Do we as youth go? The answer, quite simply, is what? No. Absolutely not. But Mom, my friends are all going to be there. It's going to be fine. Right? No, it's not fine. Allah is going to see everything that's there. He's going to see how everybody around you is dressed. He's going to hear all the music that you're listening to, which is haram music. Right? There's halal, and then there's haram music. Right? And then you don't know what's going to be happening over there. You know, Prophet Muhammad says, رحم الله من جب الغيبة عن نفسه. May Allah have mercy upon the person who protects others from falling into backbiting him. So if I go there, even if I'm just sitting down and just sipping punch, right? If somebody from the mosque sees me walking out, or all dressed up coming back from prom or homecoming, all of a sudden, right, people start backbiting me. That's my responsibility. Yes, they shouldn't have backbit me. They should have held me, given me the benefit of the doubt. But because I did so, I am to blame if they backbite me. I will have sinned, believe it or not. رحم الله من جب الغيبة عن نفسه. But Shaykhna, what are we going to do? I mean, khalas, being Muslim means not having fun at all, being miserable all the time, just crying, that's it. No, that's not what Islam wants. Right? Parents, you need to give your kids solutions too. You can't just say no, 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 no. After a while, كل ممنوع مرغوب. If someone is forbidden from something at the end of the road enough times, because they don't have the right information, their intellect still isn't where it needs to be, they have all of those raging hormones, their imagination is going to go wild, their desires are going to go wild, and they will do things behind your back, whether you like it or not. So give them solutions. So for example, let's say for prom or for homecoming, instead of our young girls going to prom, make them a prom in a private banquet hall with all of the girls in the community that are Muslim. Why not do that? What's wrong with doing that? Now don't play music that is haram. Play halal music. Shaykhna, what's halal music? Play anashid. They're beautiful anashid about Ahlul Bayt. Right? Nasheeds. Listen to them. They're amazing. There's so much good positive stuff. Positive affirmations. Right? We need to provide a solution. I'm not forgetting the guys. Right? Oh, Shaykhna, come on. Why do you need to talk about the guys? Let's live the double standard, right? No. No, no, no. No. Islam doesn't have double standards. Right? Islam treats all equally. It looks at you in terms of your taqwa. Remember that verse? يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. O people, we created you from male and female and made you tribes and nations, right? So that you may get to know each other. Surely the most gracious to Allah, the best of you, are those who are most pious, most God conscious, most aware, right? Those who expend and dedicate themselves to the obedience of Allah are the most beloved of the youth to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Al-Hasan wal-Hussein were Sayyiday Shabab Ahl al-Jannah. That's why they were the masters of the youth of heaven. So what about the guys? Guys should not be going to beaches public beaches because there are women that aren't dressed properly there. Shaykhna, what are you saying? Guys should not be wearing tight clothes such that it's hard for us to look at the guys. And I'm talking about, Islam says things, body parts that really normally should not be exposed at all, right? Those areas that normally shouldn't be seen should be covered well and loosely, right? Today, it's hard to look at the guys. You have to cast your gaze from the guys these days, not the girls. Not that you shouldn't cast the gaze from the girls. See, the girl, she agrees. Jazakallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Should the guys go to prom and homecoming? No. It's the same bad environment. Remember, we said you need to be in an environment that is positive, that has positive affirmations, right? You need to surround yourself with a team that is like-minded. So listen, guys, if you want a prom too, then, rent yourself a chalet or a banquet hall, right? Go out with the boys, have some fun, right? Halal fun. Not haram fun. Halal fun, right? Allah has nothing against you having fun as long as it doesn't lead to disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll talk a little more. I'll elaborate a little more with some more examples, and we'll talk about this topic a little more practically, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أجركم الله. Let's go back to Karbala, brothers and sisters. Al-Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Al-Imam al-Hussein had seen all of his companions killed before his very eyes. All martyred on the land of Karbala. He saw all of the men of Ahl al-Bayt killed on the land of Karbala, martyred. Brothers and sisters, ajarakumullah. Imam Hussein looks out into the plains of Karbala. He sees all the men martyred. He looks down in sorrow, and who does he see? But Al-Qasim, the son of Al-Imam Al-Hassan. Al-Qasim kept coming to Imam Hussein. Time after time, Al-Qasim would keep asking his uncle, Ammi, uncle, let me go out and fight. And he'd keep rejecting his offer. He'd say to him, Bunay Qasim, Anta al-Wadi'a. You are the trust that was entrusted to me by your father Al-Hassan. Al-Qasim would keep going back and forth. He'd say to him, Oh, Uncle Hussein, please let me go out into the battlefield. But Imam al-Hussein would say to him, Qasim, oh Qasim, أنت الوديع أنت الوديع. At this point, Al-Qasim would go to his mother complaining, my uncle, he doesn't allow me to go out and fight. There are no more men left. What should I do, O mother? His mother, Ramla, would say to him, dear son, come by me. He sits by her, they were in her tent. She opens up a chest. In that chest was the sword of his father, was the tunic of his father, was the helmet of his father, Imam al-Hassan. And right on top of everything, brothers and sisters, was a letter from Imam al-Hassan. Ramla would take it and give it to Al-Qasim. She'd say to him, dear son, Imam al-Hassan foresaw that this day would come. He said that on this day, give this this letter to my son Al-Qasim. Let him take it to his uncle Al-Imam Al-Hussein. Al-Qasim would place the tunic of his father on himself. He would place his father's helmet on his head. He would hold the shield of his father and his sword. And then he'd take the letter and walk towards Imam al-Hussein. Imam Hussein alayhi salam looked towards Al-Qasim as he heard him calling his name, Ammi ya Hussein, Ammi ya Hussein, Amma. He walks towards him, and as he walks towards him, it's as though he can see his brother Imam al-Hasan, Ruhi lahu al-fida. Al-Qasim, he comes up to his uncle, he kisses his feet and kisses his hands and says, dear uncle, this letter is from my father. It was part of his last will and testament that you read this letter. Al-Imam al-Hussein opens the letter, brothers and sisters. He recites what is inside out loud. And as he reads the letter, his eyes well up with tears. He cries and cries and cries. Brothers and sisters, the letter was from Al-Imam Al-Hasan, Ruhi lahu al-fida. What did he say in the letter? He said, Akhi ya Hussein, Akhi ya Hussein, if you are reading this letter that you have in your hands, that means that today is the day of Ashura. That means that you are in the land of Karbala. That means that no one is left to battle but my son Al-Qasim. Do not prevent him from going out and defending the holy household of the Prophet of Allah, for he will represent me on this day. And though I am not with you physically, my son is here in my place. Al-Imam al-Hussein, Ruhi lahu al-fida, he turns towards Al-Qasim. He looks at him, he smells him. He tries to get one last whiff of his brother, Al-Imam al-Hasan. He looks at him and fills his eyes with Al-Qasim. He then hugs him. He then tells him, oh son Qasim, ya'izzu ala ammik. Oh Qasim, surely it is hard for your uncle to send you out towards sheer death. Al-Qasim bids the family farewell. He hugs his mother, he hugs his aunts, he bids his uncle farewell and goes out into the battlefield. And who sees him in the battlefield but two of the enemies of Allah? One of them, he says to the other, are you really going to fight him? This one responds to him, he says to him, of course, watch what I'm going to do to him. I'm going to make his mother hate the day that she gave birth to this boy. Al-Qasim alayhi salam, as he's fighting the enemy, goes out and hits them with his sword. But as he is walking, his lace comes undone. He goes down to do his lace. His helmet covers his face and his eyes. This man comes running towards him. He strikes him on his head. Al-Qasim falls down. He screams, Adrikni ya Hussein. Help me, Uncle Hussein. Ammi ya Hussein, Adrikni. Al-Hussein hears the scream of Al-Qasim. He runs towards him and he says as he holds him, brothers and sisters, Ya'izzu ala ammika أن تناديه فلا يجيبك. أو يجيبك فلا يعينك أو يعينك فلا يغني عنك. He says, it is so hard for your uncle to hear you screaming and he comes to your side, but it is too late. And you ask for his help, but he is unable to fend for you. الإمام الحسين روحي له الفداء would hold Al-Qasim in his hands. Al-Qasim would never see the day when he would be married. Brothers and sisters, Al-Qasim was only 12 or 13 years old, the narrations say. Al-Qasim in the arms of his uncle would take his last breath, and then he would die martyred on the land of Karbala. Imam al-Hussein holds Al-Qasim close, carries him close, and he walks back to the camp, brothers and sisters. As he enters the camp, Sayyidah Zainab comes and sees. She starts wailing and crying. His mother Ramla sees. She wails and cries. The girls, Sukaina, Ruqayya, Layla, the mother of Ali al-Akbar, all the women and children gather and start crying. Brothers and sisters, Ajarakumullah. Al-Imam al-Hussein would then take Al-Qasim. He'd place him in the tent of all those from Ahl al-Bayt who were martyred on the land of Karbala. The narrators say that he placed him in the tent and then he would lie by him, brothers and sisters. From side to side he would look, and all he would see were the martyrs of the youth of Ahl al-Bayt. And then Zainab alayhi salam would say to him, dear brother Hussein, please come out of the tent. Let the women come and mourn for Al-Qasim. Let his mother come in and cry and shed her tears. Ramla would come into the tent, brothers and sisters. She would hold her son Al-Qasim. She, you can imagine, would think, Bunay Qasim, my son Qasim, I will never see you after this day. I will never have the pleasure of seeing you married or seeing you growing up. I will never see you as a man. Oh, brothers and sisters, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. He spent his youth in the obedience of Allah, even until his death, brothers and sisters, saying, Labbayka ya Hussein, Labbayka ya Hussein, Labbayka ya Hussein, Labbayka ya Hussein. Oh Allah, we ask you and we beseech you that you make us of those who are always obedient to you, so that we spend our youth and make our youth spend their youth, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, in obedience to you, so that you may love them as you love Al-Qasim, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, and all those youth of Karbala. Ya Rab, we ask you, we beseech you that you give health to our sick, and there are many who have asked for your dua. Please don't forget them from your dua, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Oh Allah, we ask you, we beseech you that you bestow your mercy upon our deceased, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Oh Allah, we ask you, we beseech you that you help those who are in debt to repay all of their debts, Ya Rab. Oh Allah, we ask you and beseech you that you allow the majalis of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein to always be full, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, with the most sincerest of believers. Allah, we ask you and we beseech you that you brighten our path, as-sirat al-mustaqim, so that we may become the best examples of mu'mineen and believers in this world, so that then when we meet you, Ya Rab, we are sinless and pure, and we have hearts that are pure, Ya Rabb al-Alameen. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والفاتحة لأرواح المرحومين ولتعجيل فرج ولي الله على الأراضين مسبوقة مشفوعة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. I believe Sister Fatma is going to be reciting. Yeah. So please stay. I have to leave, unfortunately, because of the other majlis, but please stay.
I'm a witness to my uncle's tragedy, O Hassan. I'm your body and devotion on his field of battle, O Hassan. Hussein told me your wishes, and I'm here for their commitment. By my standards on Karbala's field, I'm beyond judgment. I took your name, O Father, and raised it proudly. In my death there was pain, but I felt sweetness and saw only honey. I want to send you of my trials and victories, but Father, with what paper and with what pen? I see everything with Hussein's honor carved. O Hassan, of your company, Karbala has been starved. My eyes would have adored you, my horse even when looking. I fought for you, O Hassan, and to keep this son, Hussein, from bleeding, though my death meant nothing to them. And so they treaded anyways. They massacred all that they saw and set the tents ablaze. I want to deliver my pain and sorrow, but Father, with what paper and with what pen? Your letter to my uncle gave me breath on his land forever. I promise that while my death is painful, I see it as an honor. With my sword as defense, and the other hand waving goodbye, how am I going to send you letters of my cries? How will I package my sorrow while defending my uncles? I only have two hands. If only I had this letter written by angels. I want to send you my cries and thanks, but Father, with what paper and with what pen? Maybe Abbas in his hands will write it for me to take. They seem like an angel's wings that can't break, in hopes that before I die I'm able to present to you love. But if I am unable, at least my death will lead me above. Every cry was sustained by fierceness, for this is for you. Oh Hassan, hold me when I die as if I'm a baby new. I want to converse before my death, but Father, with what paper and with what pen? Dying on the land while fighting tirelessly. I knew I was going to bleed completely, but I can't keep the thoughts of Hussein breathless. But I can't help my thoughts of Hussein breathless. My strength for him on Karbala is endless. I am trying to lengthen the distance between Hussein and his death. I am trying to lengthen the distance between Hussein and his death, but Father, during this, I've lost my own breath. I won you so I can trust you in complaints, but Father, with what paper and with what pen? I see the heaviness of the horse's hooves. I pray to the Lord that I don't receive dreadful news, and so I'm in thanks when I die before everyone else, because, oh Hassan, I was surprised to see Abbas in heaven's house. I thought he was unshakable by even mountains, but I saw in Karbala, even the strongest of us had no functions. Oh Hassan, I would ask where you were, but Father, with what paper and with what pen? Oh Hassan, I would ask where you were, but Father, with what paper and with what pen? Wassalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.